Welcome to the Friday Night Campfire Stories. My name is Rob and I will be your host for this evening. This is going to be the finale of my story, Apparition. It's been quite a crazy ride so far, so if you have not checked out chapters 1, 2, or 3, I would recommend doing that before we get into the finale. But if you're all caught up, then there's no point in wasting any more time. Let's get into it. This is the finale of my story, Apparition. Apparition, Chapter 4. What the hell? The producer muttered, yanking the door handle. It's locked. We're stuck in here. The actor, pale and breathing heavily, pressed his back against a cold stone wall. This isn't part of the script, right? Please tell me this isn't real. Chaz's mind raced, his heart thudding in his ear. The roar, it had been too real, too visceral. Something was in here with them, something not of this world. He reached for the camera on his shoulder, the red light still blinking steadily, broadcasting the nightmare live to thousands of viewers. The same deep, gravely roar that had rattled the building before suddenly reverberated through the church again. This time, it felt closer. The sound was primal, something not meant for human ears, but it sent cold sweats down Chaz's spine. We have to go, Chaz said, his voice low and urgent. We need to head towards the source of the sound. It's the only way. We're trapped in here. The producer looked at him like he had lost his mind. You want to go towards that thing? Are you insane? Chaz didn't answer. They didn't have a choice. Whatever was in here wasn't going to let them out easily. The sound came from the side entrance, so maybe they could escape. Slowly, reluctantly, they began to move towards the large, looming door that led deeper into the church, towards the chambers below. Before they could reach it, one of the smaller doors on the side room creaked open. Chaz's flashlight swung towards it, illuminating a figure stepping out of the shadows. An old man stood in the doorway, his skin leathery and pale as though he had never seen sunlight. His clothes were tattered and filthy, hanging from skeletal frame like rags. But what made the men freeze in their tracks was his face, gaunt, hollow, with eyes sunken deep into his skull, as if he had been dead for years, but somehow still walked and was alive. Who the hell are you? The producer stammered, voice trembling. The old man's head turned slowly, his milky white eyes settling on them with a deep look of malice. His mouth open, and raspy, old voice emerged, sounding like it hadn't been used in years. You shouldn't have come here, the old man rasped. This place is cursed. And you don't belong. Chaz took a step forward, trying to remain calm. His legs felt like they could give out any second. Who are you? The old man's lips curled into a grotesque smile, revealing blackened, rotting teeth. I'm the keeper, the caretaker. I watch over the beast. The word sent a chill through the room. The beast? Chaz asked cautiously, his hands gripping the camera tighter. What beast? The old man coughed, a dry, hacking sound that echoed off the walls. The one you've disturbed. It won't let you leave now. You brought it to life. The three men exchanged a glance. The actor was trembling, visibly shaken as he pressed himself against the wall. The old man shuffled forward into the light. Something caught Chaz's eyes. Tattoos snaking the man's weathered arm. And then, as the old man's sleeve shifted, Chaz saw it clearly. A faded but unmistakable mark. 666. The mark of the beast. Chaz's blood ran cold. Oh my God, he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. The others noticed it at the same time, their eyes widening with terror. The producer took a step back, voice trembling. We need to get out of here now. Before they could react, a scream pierced through the air, high-pitched, desperate, and filled with pure terror. The three of them spun around, only to find that the actor was gone. Where? Chaz started, but his voice faltered. The actor had been standing right beside them just moments ago, but now there was nothing but empty space where he had been. Then came a sound, a sickening, bone-snapping sound from the dark in the hallway beyond. They all turned to the source, eyes wide with horror. Oh no, the producer breathed. No. Is he dead? Chaz whispered, though he already knew the answer. The old man smiled again, that same twisted grin. You can't escape the beast. It's already claimed one of you. Albert staggered backwards, panic overtaking him. We need to get out of here. We need to... A heavy thud reverberated through the church, followed by a deep, rumbling growl somewhere in the shadows. The beast was close. Too close. Chaz stepped forward, trying to keep his voice steady for the camera. What is it? What's in here with us? The old man tilted his head, eyes gleaming with something dark and ancient. It's always been here, waiting, feeding on the souls of the cursed. You, all of you, are just the latest. The producer lunged for the door, rattling the handle in a desperate attempt to get it open. It's locked. We're still trapped. Another roar echoed from the darkness, and this time it was deafening. Chaz could feel the vibrations through the floor, through his bones. The old man began to laugh, a low guttural chuckle that sounded more like a death rattle than mirth. The beast was coming for them. We need to move, Chaz said, his voice barely above a whisper. He knew the cameras were still rolling, capturing every terrifying moment. The viewers had no idea just how real this had become, but Chaz did, and now there was no turning back. Chaz and Albert's hands were trembling as they slammed their bodies into the locked door, the heavy thud of each impact drowned out by the monstrous footstep that echoed down the halls behind them. The beast was coming. Each step sounded like thunder, growing closer, shaking the ancient stone walls of the church. Come on, Albert screamed, sweat pouring down his face as he kicked the door, frantic. We've got to get out of here. Chaz's heart pounding, paused for a moment. The door wasn't going to budge, not with the little time they had left. He glanced at the broken, rotten pew nearby, splintered and half collapsed against the wall. Grab that, Chaz shouted, nodding towards the pew. Albert's eyes widened. Are you crazy? We don't have time for that. Chaz didn't respond, already grabbing the heavy splintered wood and pulling it towards the door. Help me, he yelled, urgency in his voice. Reluctantly, Albert rushed over, grabbing the other end. The two men lifted the pew, adrenaline surging through their veins, and charged at the door, using the wood as a battering ram. The door groaned under pressure, but it didn't give way. Behind them, the footsteps grew louder, closer. The beast was only moments away. Chaz looked over his shoulder, his heart sinking as a massive shadow shifted just beyond the edge of his vision, a hulking form moving through the dim light. They had to hurry. Again, Chaz yelled, slamming the pew into the door with all their strength. The wood splintered more as the door cracked but held firm. The growl beyond them turned into a deep, husky roar that sent fresh wave of terror through Chaz's body. One more, Chaz shouted. They charged again. With a deafening crack, the door finally broke off its hinges, crashing inward. Chaz and Albert stumbled through the door into the lobby, breathing heavily, eyes wide with fear. But Albert didn't stop. He spun around, darting back into the dark, cursed room. What are you doing? Chaz screamed, panic rising in his throat. The shadow of the beast was closing in on them, the monstrous form visible, and his eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. The camera! Albert shouted back, running back to where Chaz had set it down. We can't leave the footage. It's our proof. Chaz wanted to yell at him to leave it, but before he could speak, Albert grabbed the camera and sprinted back towards him. They both ran towards the main door, their only way out. Chaz hit the door hard, slamming against it with all his weight. Unlock it, Albert! Hurry! Albert, breathing heavily, fumbled with his pockets, patting them down frantically. I can't find the key. The footsteps pounded behind them, getting closer with every second. Chaz's breath was shallow as his eyes darted back towards the church room. The beast was almost there, its hulking figure visible, filling the doorway like a living nightmare. Albert, Chaz yelled, shaking him. Find the damn key. Albert finally dug into his jacket pocket, pulling out a small, rusted key. With trembling hands, he fumbled it, trying to force it into the lock. His hands were shaking too much. Come on, come on. Just as the beast stepped into the lobby, its massive form blocking out the light, Albert jammed his key into the lock, but instead of turning, the key disintegrated into dust right before their eyes. Chaz's heart plummeted. No, 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 no. Albert backed away from the door, his face drained of all color, the key falling from his hand. What the hell just happened? The beast let out another roar, a sound so terrifying it made the walls tremble. Chaz spun around, grabbing Albert by the arm. We need another way out. But there is no other way. The door that was their only exit, the side door, was locked from the outside, and now they were trapped with the thing that had been hunting them since the moment they arrived. The beast moved closer, its massive frame heaving with every breath. Chaz could feel the floor vibrate beneath the feet as it approached. He could see the glowing red eyes, twisted, grotesque features of something not meant for this world. Chaz's mind raced. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about facing the unimaginable. Whatever was coming for them, it wasn't going to let them go without a fight. Just then, Chaz turned to see the beast for the first time with his own eyes. Its towering, grotesque figure, an unholy abomination of a shadow and flesh that reek of sulfur and death. Its skin, charred and cracked like the surface of the scorched earth, oozes black tar blood that seems to writhe with a life of its own. Horns twist from its skull like gnarled tree branches, sharp and jagged, pulsing with malevolent energy. Its eyes burn with an infernal red glow, hollow pits that seem to consume the very light around them, offering a glimpse into the endless abyss of suffering beyond. Its mouth stretches unnaturally wide, filled with rows of needle-sharp teeth that gleam wetly into the darkness, each one capable of shredding flesh and bone with terrifying ease. From its throat rumbles a guttural, hellish growl, a sound that shakes the ground and freezes the blood of anyone who hears it. Long, sinewy arms drag on the ground, ending in talons so sharp that they can slice through steel as though they were paper. Every moment is slow, deliberate, yet impossibly powerful, as the very air around it warps under the pressure of its evil presence. The beast exudes pure terror, a living nightmare born from the darkest corners of hell. It stalks its prey with an insidious intelligence, savoring their fear as it draws closer. Those who meet its gaze are paralyzed by an overwhelming sense of doom, as if death itself has come to claim them. It's more than a mere monster. It's the embodiment of suffering, torment, and evil. When it appears, hope dies, and the only certainty is the agony that follows. Oh my God, Chaz whispers, locking eyes with the creature. Run. Chaz and Albert start to run it back into the main room, with Hope eluding it. However, Albert comes to a halt and turns back. The camera, Albert yells, running back towards the beast. Forget about it, Chaz yells over his shoulder while running in the opposite direction. It's our proof. It's our show, Albert yells back. He makes it to the camera, picks it up, but when he glances up through the night vision camera, he sees the beast standing in front of him. When the camera reaches his face, it lets out the loudest growl yet, almost as if it were getting stronger. Uh-oh, Albert says before letting out a high-pitched squeal. The beast picks him up with little to no effort and begins taking the life of the producer. The camera falls to the ground, landing in the perfect spot where the audience can witness Albert's final moments. The devil starts by breaking the right arm of Albert, causing him to scream in pain. Chaz hears a yell, but knows there's nothing he can do to save his producer and continues on. The beast then scratches at Albert's neck, muting his screams as blood pours out of his scratch marks. The beast then takes him by the head and takes one of his giant claws and slices Albert's head clean off his body. The devil begins his attention towards Chaz, who went missing. He starts searching for the paranormal investigator.
Coleman, you want proof? Come out and get it.
The beast yells in the deepest voice possible. Chaz, hiding in the main church room under the podium, heard every footstep the creature took and flinched at every passing moment, hoping it wouldn't be his last. He had lived through these moments before on the set of the show, but this was far from the show. This was, for the first time, real. After a few moments, he could see the beast and the beast's keeper standing in the middle of the room. He could overhear their conversation.
Master, we need one more head, said the old man. Please, let me sacrifice myself for the greater good.
Chaz was confused about what he was talking about. But just then, the devil raised his arm and the room lit up. All the lanterns that were old caught fire. The pews of the church all flew to the side, and a pentagram appeared on the floor beneath. The beast then raised his hand, unveiling his claws, to remove the head of the old man. He places the old man, the actor, and Albert's head on 3 different points on the pentagram. He then starts walking over to where Chaz is. Chaz is scared and starts trying to come up with some sort of plan, but how is he supposed to defeat the devil? The beast then opens the box that is right next to where Chaz is hiding. In the box, he pulls out 2 more heads, all old and practically skeletons at this point. Chaz can only assume they are prior victims of the beast. He begins placing the heads on the remaining points of the symbols, which causes the room to come to life. Chaz realizes what the creature is doing could not just harm him, but it could harm the rest of the world. He knows he's going to have to act quickly. The pentagram starts moving off the ground. The devil starts speaking in another language, starting a ritual that only he knows the outcome of. Chaz then pops out from behind the podium and screams at the creature. The beast's eyes dart towards Chaz and he starts running towards the beast. Chaz, with a bucket of what he hoped was holy water, runs at the beast as quickly as he can and chucks the entire bucket towards him. This causes the beast to fall and is blinded by the water. Chaz then pulls out a cross he had found on the ground behind the podium. He begins saying a prayer. However, this doesn't work for long. The devil throws his fist at Chaz with an unearthly power, knocking Chaz 15 feet back up to the front of the room. The beast then walks up towards him and stands over him.
You think this tiny cross is going to stop me?
He says in the face of Chaz. Probably not, Chaz responds, but hopefully this one does. The beast looks up to see the giant cross on the wall being pulled down by a rope that Chaz had noticed earlier coming off the crucifix. It crashes down on the beast and the pentagram. Chaz watches as the cross struck the devil and the symbol, and it hits the ground. Not prepared for what would come next, the room is engulfed in a giant fireball. As the inferno consumes the church, Chaz collapses in front of the fallen cross, his body unable to endure the battle with the beast. The last thing he sees before the flames overtake him is the crumbling stone ceiling, the eerie red glow of the pentagram fading, and the guttural sound of the beast's final death throes. Chaz's mind races with fleeting images of Rebecca, his life before the lies, and the feeling of redemption. He had fought for something real. He closes his eyes and let the darkness take him. By morning, the once blazing church is nothing more than an eerie, silent ruin. As soon as the room erupted into a fireball, this caused the steam to go off in the air. The firefighters and police arrive after receiving frantic phone calls from viewers who saw the live stream cut out the moment that the explosion happened. But when they stepped inside, they were met with a disturbing sight. The church, which had been reported as smoldering in flames, now appeared untouched by time, dust-covered and desolate, as if it hadn't been entered in centuries. The fire is gone, the charred walls, the demonic symbols, the wreckage, all gone, and Chaz's body nowhere to be found. The police searched the grounds but uncovered nothing. No traces of the body, no evidence of the battle that was broadcasted to thousands. It is as if the events of the night before were a collective hallucination. The church stands there, cold and abandoned, as though it had never witnessed the horrors that took place. As word spreads, the media spins the disappearance of Chaz Coleman into yet another scandal. Headlines brand him a fraud, a man who vanished when his hoax unraveled. Social media lights up with accusations, videos calling him a con artist, mocking his so-called live stream disaster. People analyze the footage, frame by frame, debating whether it was an elaborate setup. They call the lack of a body or evidence further proof that Chaz was never anything more than a liar, desperate for attention. But the truth is far darker than any speculation. Deep in the shadowy recesses of the forgotten church, beneath a layer of stone and time, lies the answers. Chaz didn't just die. His soul was claimed by the very entity he sought to defeat. The beast, in its final act, took Chaz's body, dragging it beyond the veil, into the void between worlds. There he remains trapped, a ghost in his own right, forever bound to the malevolent force he had fought. his mortal shell lost to the realm, his fate sealed in external torment. What the world doesn't know, what they'll never understand, is that everything that night was real. The beast existed. The ritual, the battle, the fire, it all happened. But the church, a cursed place older than memory, is beyond the understanding of those who weren't there. It's wiped clean of the evidence, hiding the truth from those who would never believe it. And Chaz, in a final act of bravery, paid the ultimate price. His soul locked away in a realm no one can reach. But there are still whispers in the dark corners of the internet. A handful of viewers who saw something in the last moment of the stream. A flicker of a shadow behind Chaz. A strange light in his eyes as he delivered his final words. These viewers, including Rebecca, knew something terrible happened. Something no hoax could explain, but no one believes them. Rebecca, devastated by Chaz's appearance, senses the truth. Late at night, she sometimes feels his presence. A cold whisper in the still air. A fleeting glimpse in the mirror. She knows Chaz didn't fake it. Not this time. He fought for something real, and lost. But no one will ever know. Chaz Coleman has become another ghost, not just of the paranormal world, but of history. His name forever tainted. But the truth, buried deep in the forgotten corners of that ancient church, will never fade. And somewhere, in a realm beyond, the beast waits, which has a soul forever at its mercy. So that is going to do it for my story, Apparition. I hope that you guys did enjoy. If you did, be sure to click that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And that actually is going to end my entire book, Whisper in the Shadow. We've covered all 6 stories from that first book that I wrote. But have no fear, next week we will be back, but we are going to be changing things up just a little bit. And I want to get into that now. So, first of all, we're going to be getting into a brand new book, A Perfect Journey Through Villainous Eyes. We'll be reading the first story in there. Now, there's a few major changes that are going to be happening in this. So first of all, we are kind of moving out of the horror phase of the year. So we're moving into the spring. That's when I'm going to be doing more thriller. But have no fear, the horror will be back later on this year when we get closer to spooky season. If you enjoy the horror, I will say these next stories that are coming up do have horror aspects to them, but I would definitely label them as thriller. Just kind of want to throw that out there for you guys. But like I said, they're still very, very good stories. I think they're very well written. It's definitely a big step up from my first book, so I'm excited to share them with you guys. Another big change is that every single story we've done so far has been covered over 4 chapters or 4 weeks. And so each month we start a brand new story. This story that we'll be starting with is going to be called Astral. It is my best story I've ever written. It's one I have a really special feeling about once people start to hear it. And I can't wait to share it with you guys next week. But there was so much going on in this story that we couldn't just do it for 1 month. It's actually going to be covered over the course of 2 months. It's an 8-chapter series. So be ready for that. We start that next week, but obviously, like I said, it will be covered over 2 months. The last major change that we will be doing is actually going to be with the Friday Night Campfire stories. Something that there have been a few comments about, and people have said that it might be better if it was this way, so we're going to try it out. Unless if there's like a major revolution that people say, no, don't do this. But we will be starting to use text-to-speech for the stories as well as the shorts that I post. People have said that my voice just isn't really... It doesn't do the story justice. People say they love the stories, but it's just something with the voice. He doesn't have the right... I don't know. I get what they mean. I've never really enjoyed my voice. But I did want to keep this as authentic as possible with me telling my own stories, but I do think maybe it would be a good idea to move into the text-to-speech since they do sound so lifelike, and they can definitely convey more emotion than I usually do. But not only that, it'll also be a much more pleasant voice to listen to the entire time. And so we are going to be doing that starting next week with my story Astral. And obviously, if you guys don't like and prefer me to go back to me telling the stories every single week, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just trying to make everybody happy and give you the best viewing experience as possible. I will say that I will still be here every single week. I'm not going away. Pretty much how I want it to run now is more of like a Goosebumps sort of deal. If you remember the old show, R.L. Stine, the guy who wrote the Goosebumps series, would sometimes do an intro, maybe an outro for an episode of Goosebumps. That's kind of what I have thought about this, is just I'll come in here kind of like what I'm doing now, I'll do my intro, do my outro, but then the text-to-speech will still be the one telling the entire story. But that is going to do it for today. I hope that you guys did enjoy. If you did, please click that like button, hit that subscribe button, and as always, thank you for spending a little bit of your evening here with me.